Okay, let's go.
Hello there, Chick Chatters. We're back with Teen Mom, the next chapter. This is chapter 3, and they're starting this chapter off hot and fresh. We got Delusional back with Bree. Bree's apparently going to just meet her. MTV set up this nice little phone call between them.
Yeah. They agree to meet up, and Bree calls the cast, and she tells the girl she wants the tea, and I don't blame her, but awkward must it be to have to truly sit across from her when we see this scene go down, because that girl was just lying out of her ass.
Yeah, you weren't going to get much tea from her. She's trying to cover herself up a little bit. Just kind of fluffing it up. After this phone call with Brianna, they don't trust Brianna again until she meets up with Jenelle. And they're having lunch, and Brianna starts questioning her on what's going on with David and everything else. And she gives us a bunch of fluff and a bunch of stuff that we know from the past few months isn't necessarily what's been reported.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of story she thinks that she's trying to live inside of, because she's been denying all of these allegations since they've been happening, even going so far as to blame Jace for a lot of this stuff. Like, so far as to say that family was being protected from Jace rather than Jace being protected from David, which is what we all know was happening. Anyway, so she's been living in that world, and now coming into Teen Mom, it's like she's accepting what the media has been saying in a way by like, yeah, Jace said that he got choked. In the way that she said, Jace said that he got choked, it's like she gave it some kind of dramatic tone and facial gesture that I just didn't appreciate. It looks like she still doesn't believe him. And from what we understand, she saw this happen with her own eyes. Apparently, it's on a video, allegedly. Allegedly.
That's what I've heard, at least. And even so, she's making it seem like she's just this perfect mom that once she heard that this happened to him, she forced David out. No, it took months for that to happen.
No, she didn't, actually. She said once Jace had to come back home because there was a restraining order, then I told David he's got to go. It's like, Jenelle, you're going to let the law dictate for you what's better for your kids than yourself. That is so effing strange. If there was not a case against David, Jace would have had to go back into that house. That's the only reason that Jenelle left David. And then she calls it a blessing in disguise. I mean, we all know that it is a blessing in disguise, but not in the way that Jenelle was looking at it.
Yeah.
It's just weird. I think her whole storyline is BS. There's so many holes through it. It's hard for even you and I to get straight. And we watch these girls because that girl needs to pick a lane and stay in it. And she should try to find the lane of concerned mother, not, oh, well, it was just a blessing in disguise that my son got choked by my husband, so I had to finally leave him. What do you mean? Get over your own self and care for your kids for once.
100%. And I wonder too if it wasn't just this whole Jace thing. I think she hasn't been happy with David, obviously, for a long time. I mean, he's been hitting up his ex-wife in text messages, allegedly. Although there's text messages, I don't know how allegedly is. But although this man don't have $1, he was stealing dollars out of Janelle's money, so I don't know what he got to sue me with. But anyways. So not just that, but in this episode, Jenelle says that David let her be friends with this dude, and she's been talking to this dude August. So who knows how long they've been at least flirty with each other. So maybe she's in part like fine leaving David because she's already got another dude lined up. Because we all know Jenelle. In her little flashback, she's saying that Nathan was the love of her life at one point, not even mentioning Andrew, and then making a point to say that David was somebody she quickly moved on with. And I'm like, dude, what? Nathan's the one that got away and David distracted you from that? And
I understand that Jenelle and David's relationship was abusive. I don't believe for a second when Jenelle denies to Bree that he's never hit her, because we all heard the collarbone incident, and that's why she had to fess up to that as well. She's like, no, he never hit me. Oh, except for that time with my collarbone. Those things don't just happen one time. And we know who David is. Everybody knows who David is. I can understand that leaving those relationships are difficult, but Jenelle has a pattern before being in physically abusive relationships that she chooses her men before her kids, before anything anyways. I mean, look at what happened with Kaifa. Kiefer, I don't think Kiefer was hitting her, but she was choosing that man all day, every day. Jace was crying at home at the door.
Yeah, and that's why I'm wondering if this August guy and her have more of a thing going on than what we think, because she's talking about moving to Vegas.
Why is she calling the manager friend too? Was it her manager or is he just a manager somewhere? What does he manage? Is that her manager or talent manager? Who is this? What's he managing?
Listen, last time I heard of an August in between someone's marriage, there was lots of entanglements. I don't know.
Please stop naming these men August.
Find a different month.
So just to wrap up Janelle's storyline, she goes to an apartment viewing with Brianna.
But that was weird too, because they look at this nice house and Jenelle doesn't need anything extra extravagant right now. Okay, like she's leaving a state, going to a different state. Teen mom might not be around that much longer, and she's got making her OnlyFans money, but eventually your body gives out too. So I mean, there comes a time where you won't be able to afford some nice big fancy house. And Brianna's seeing this video that Janelle's sharing from Vegas. She's like, "Oh, he's looking at houses for me. Look at this house." And Brianna's like, "That's too big. No."
Yeah, she's like, you don't need a big house like that. You know, I'm glad that Brianna's there, and she seems to have a good way these days of confronting somebody, but not in a negative way, but just kind of telling them what they need to hear. I think Jenelle was low-key getting a little bit annoyed. I heard her give the one word K and I am and things like that. But somebody needs to tell this lady to just be realistic. I don't know where her brain is at. It's always crazy. But I could tell too. I was not impressed with these little apartments. That's a good place to be for right now. I understand it's not the land. I know that there's no way that they're maintaining these assets anyways. Neither one of them are working. They're broke. They got this house. They got this land. They got a boat somehow. All that stuff is going to go in the divorce. Let me tell you right now, because they have probably so much debt.
Right now they're living in the middle of nowhere on some swampland.
They're not even be able to sell that house because it's on a swamp. It's not going to be worth nothing that they thought that it was going to be worth if it's truly sinking like they said that it was. She's going to need to cut her losses. I'm about to walk away from her marriage with much more than the ability to be on television for however long this rides out. So I don't know why she's being so unrealistic.
Why wouldn't you want to get out of the swamp and be closer to Disney World and stuff? What the hell are you going to do with your kids in Vegas? You have young kids. Why don't you just move closer to the other teen moms so MTV don't have to travel for you, so you can actually stay on the show a little bit? If they don't got to make any extra accommodations,
they're going to follow Bree. If you can drive down the street, that's way better.
And Mackenzie. Mackenzie's also in Florida. They got a lot going on in Florida. You might as well make it easier on them, because then they'll maybe film with you a little bit more. I don't know. I'm just saying. Make a little money that way. Maybe get a couple extra OnlyFans fans, a couple Matt Bears in there. You know, some.
So she FaceTimes Jace for a minute, who looks just like his dad. It's so strange. It looks like he's FaceTiming his dad. Every weird paparazzi video that we see of his dad, that's what he looks like on that FaceTime. It was kind of strange. But apparently he's holding down the fort. The kid who she claims was just either abusive towards her family, which we all know is not true, or running away and some kind of delinquent out of control is over there running the house now. So again, I just don't believe that she thinks that he's either of those things. I think obviously David was violent and she stayed with him when she shouldn't have stayed with him until she couldn't stay with him any longer legally.
I wonder if she's got someone else checking on these kids, because I just can't. We got David on the loose, living in a boat, and you're gonna leave.
And she came out with all these allegations. Yeah, she came out with all these allegations right after they broke up that he was like creeping around on the land and released a video. Yeah, so no.
This was like the episode to leave your kids home alone. Which is, I mean, it's fine to me. I'm a 90s kid. You know, I grew up in the house alone, pretty much. That's normal for us.
Even if my mom was home, we were still on our own. Like, they weren't up our ass.
There was less people in the home. Your parents went on dates, or I know my parents would go out and leave us all three in the house. And there wasn't
just like be in the garage all night. That was basically like being home alone. I wasn't allowed to bother him.
Right, and there wasn't cameras like Mackenzie's able to look at while she's on her date, looking at them like, oh, this is what they're doing, and I can do with my dog.
And they were vacuuming. How cute!
Yeah.
Let's just jump into Mackenzie real quick. They did go on a date, and she did leave the kids at home alone. her and Kaz are going to be celebrating their year anniversary. I thought they were going to get engaged on this episode.
I know, because he was teasing it. At least, though, Mackenzie is only maybe a few minutes away. Maybe she's going to be gone for like 2-3 hours tops. Janelle's in a whole different state, so.
So true.
Wait, I do have one question about Jenelle before we get on with this, because I'm assuming Janelle's been gone for a couple days to do all this with MTV and everything else. How is Jace getting the kids to school?
I don't know what time of year it is.
Preschool and school. Is school still optional in the South?
I never went to preschool.
Her younger 2 kids are homeschooled. She doesn't have her kids in school. Remember, she pulled them all from school when all the abuse happened. She didn't want no one reporting anything. None of her kids are in public school.
School is still optional
School is still optional in the House of Evans.
I never went to preschool.
House of Evans. All right. I guess. Is Jason school? How's he getting himself to school?
I don't know, Miss Ann.
I have so many questions. So back to Mackenzie. Yeah, she is on this date with Casanio, but they're also talking about having a baby a lot this episode. Apparently, Mackenzie got her tubes tied after Josh, which I probably would have too.
I would as well. Yeah. Because she really was committed to the value of marriage. So I think for a long time, she thought she was going to be with this man forever, no matter what happened. And I wouldn't want to have one more damn child with him either, because they always drop Mackenzie and then they follow her when something bad happens or when she gets pregnant. So we have seen a couple of her pregnancies, I think more than one at least. So they're never good. Josh has always been trash. And I think through one of them is when her mom, really was declining a lot. I think through her last one.
And she's got diabetes, so she
has diabetes.
So her pregnancies aren't very easy anyways, and they're probably higher risk. But she loves Casanio so much she's going to have a baby with him. And you know what? Casanio is a better dad than Josh, so I don't blame her.
No, I would want to have a baby with him if I were her. I don't personally, but I think their relationship is great. I know it's still really early, but as far as age goes and stuff, I feel like they're both showing their best selves. I don't think they're that inauthentic about what's going on.
And Mackenzie's 30 and she already had her tubes tied. So I don't know what the process is like of untying the tubes and then how that goes into fertility. So I'm sure that's something she really would have to start at least.
Well, they're going to follow that, I believe, throughout the season. So I think this was just kind of a sprinkle of the start of this storyline, because I know in the super trailer that they released, I died because Mackenzie's talking to somebody and the doctor is telling her about
the doctor.
Yeah, the baby duct is telling her about how you can freeze your embryos. And she was like in our freezer? What? So I'm so excited to see that part. I think this is going to be a storyline. We're going to find out a little bit more about that. But that's pretty much where it is with Mackenzie for this episode.
And then we move on to Leah. And Leah's storyline this episode is about Jeremy. They started off giving us a brief history of Jeremy, and then that led into something real bad happened. And I'm like, oh, it must do with Jeremy. She just showed me a bunch of history of Jeremy.
Foreshadowing was real.
Yeah, the foreshadowing there. The slap of the bacon, they threw it all in there.
They did.
I'm glad I had a baby, but not who I had a baby with.
I know. So apparently Jeremy shows up at Leah's place of employment where she is a waitress. No, that's complete harassment, especially if he didn't show up there by accident to have a meal. That's the only way that it could be even okay. And we all know that didn't happen because there's video of it and he looks like he's confronting the manager, the host, Leah. The manager actually pushes Leah away at one point, not like aggressively, but just tells her to go away in the back because it seemed like it was getting heated. Leah lets us know that I guess Jeremy was in there accusing her of having Addie at home for too long, like 7 hours or something while she was at work. And Leah says that that's not true. Again, I think Addie is at that age where she could be at home for a little while, probably not during a 7-hour work shift, but who's to say that the neighbor's not checking in, making her food? Maybe she's going somewhere. Maybe somebody's stopping by. Maybe somebody's there the whole time. I don't know.
Victoria's been coming in and out. I mean,
maybe she's at Victoria's. How does Jeremy even know all? Just because Leah is working when she has custody of her child does not mean that her child is just sitting at home alone by herself.
Well, and it's just like you said, you used to sit at home alone when your mom went to work. I used to
I
go
did.
be at home alone when my mom went to work. And sometimes it just go to bed. It seemed like Leah was working late. So she could have been working
Mhm.
late and then Addie was gonna be up for maybe like 3-4 hours, but then she's gonna go to bed.
Right. And that could be the same thing with a babysitter, right? Like someone could come over while Addie's still awake and then put her to bed. And there's so many things like cameras and stuff these days where Leah could be watching that girl closer than she'd be watching her when she's at home. I mean, geez.
Right. Probably. Because I know when I'm home with my parents, I always went to a different room and did whatever the hell I was gonna do.
I'm gonna go in the backyard for 3 hours. See you never.
See you again for dinner.
See you at dinner time.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Mackenzie was doing. Mackenzie was checking her cameras, and honestly, that's probably better because then you can even yell at them on the cameras. I know I can yell at my dog on the cameras. I can be like, Django.
Yeah, so true.
I know that if in case of emergency, you're not right there, but at least you can call 911 and they'll probably get there before you can get there. Help better than you can help anyway. So.
Right. The messed up part about this, though, is because this happened, Leah did want to file a protection order, which I think was well within her bounds to do. And that's what the police recommended that she did. She was scared to go to work at that point, and I would be too, because you work in a public place, he can show up there whenever he wants. So she did go file a protection order, but apparently it had to be served before Leah picked up Addie because it affected the pickup situation. So it had to be served before that so that she could be protected by this protection order. That happened to be while Addie was with Jeremy. I guess that caused a little bit of a stir with Addie. I guess what happens was Jeremy got served with this protection order and he probably was upset.
He probably was, and he was probably saying a bunch of stuff about Leah because Addie said that she was mad at Leah at first.
Yeah, she said she blamed her, which is really sad because Leah really didn't ask for any of this. And the fact that Addie does have to be affected by that, none of this would have happened if Jeremy, one, would just control his alcohol because it sounds like allegedly he was drinking during that time. And two, if he just didn't show up in the first place. One thing to get belligerently drunk, it's another thing to go leave somewhere and harass your ex-wife.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
I'm not condoning leaving your kids at home alone. Don't get me wrong. Don't be just leaving your kids at home alone willy-nilly all the time, whatever. I mean, if you got to go to work sometimes, like, do what you got to do, but I'm not condoning leaving your kids home alone all the time.
Well, people arrange for childcare. Just because you work, don't mean your kid's just like sitting there helpless. There's babysitters, there's neighbors, there's friends and family.
But my point is that even if you have a problem with that, and if you have a problem with however Leah's going about her childcare, whatever, there's a totally different way to talk to her about it. You can actually wait till a time she's not at work and maybe at the drop off be like, hey, there's some things I want to talk about. Set up a time to talk to her about them like you've done in the past. Y'all have done this shit in the past. But obviously there's something else going on. Jeremy's seeming like he's got some kind of issues with
something weird is going on with him because usually he's as active as he can be. I know that he works a lot, but here's a crazy solution, Jeremy. If you're so worried about the amount that Leah's working and Addie being home alone, why don't you go get your kid? Why don't you go spend time with her? Why don't you be like, hey, drop her off and pick her up when you go to work? No problem with me. I'd love to make up on lost time because I worked all the damn time. Leave this woman alone.
Does this mean while you're sitting at this bar waiting for Leah that Addie's sitting at home alone? So instead of going over there and picking her up and hanging out with her and whatever, you're just waiting to bitch out Leah when you know this girl's home alone? Like, well, if you're so concerned, go get her.
Go get your kid, sir. Probably because she's not sitting at home alone. Probably because Addie is actually sitting at Victoria's house or something like that. Like, you can't go get her because I do believe Leah's responsible now. I know we've seen Leah through a lot of phases in her life, but I think she's responsible enough now to get appropriate childcare for her kids. And again, I think Addie's at the age where at least for a couple of hours, maybe not a 7-hour shift. I think
Addie's at least 10 to 12 or something years old. I mean, the twins are at least like 14. And I know Addie didn't come much later after that. I want to think she's been 8 for the last 10 years.
I was going to say she's 8 too, but she's 11. I just looked. That was as of February 5th of this year. So she was probably 10 during filming, which I remember being alone for at least 4 or 5 hours at a time when I was 10, if not longer. Just to wrap this up, she does file a protection order. The protection order does go through. So Leah has 180 days of no contact with Jeremy and is doing drop-offs with his mom. It seemed like maybe Addie peeped that court was that day, maybe because of what Leah was wearing, or I don't know, but she asked that day, do you have court with my dad yet? And Leah's like, you don't get to be involved in those things. And she's like, I just want to know what's going on. So she
always
reassures her that nothing is going to change between them.
Yeah. So now we are going to go over to Catelynn, whose mom is in the hospital. She decides to tell Nova about it, but she just goes for a hard blow. She's like, well, your grandma's in the hospital. It's like, what?
And I don't know why, but she couldn't breathe.
Oh my gosh.
Nova's poor faces during this whole episode. Her face when grandma couldn't breathe. Her face when she learned that mom and dad are not coming to lunch with her. Her face when Kate was like, get out of the car. It was just, poor Nova was going through it. And I don't think Kate did really anything bad in this situation, but you could tell, just like she said, she's just feeling a lot of anxiety, and you get a lot of irritability that comes with that. And I think it's hard for Nova to feel out. And Nova is old enough that she can have a relationship with her grandma that's independent, but I don't think she has before. So all of this is really new to her as well.
She's not understanding that her mom and her grandma are really getting along.
She's not walking around with that awareness that I can't have everybody all together.
Yeah. So it sounds like April's fine, which is what Catelynn does tell Nova. But I'm like, girl, you could have just told her, like, grandma's fine, but she was in the hospital. Like, my mom used to tell me stuff like that all the time, but she always started it off with, so-and-so's fine, everything's okay, but this happened. This way I was like, okay, well, everything's okay. Catelynn does talk to Nova about meeting up with April after she talks to Tyler about it. Obviously, Tyler is like really coaching her through a lot.
He's doing a good job. Kate's making the right choices. It's just, it's hard when you're in it emotionally. So I think he's just giving her a lot of validation, but also making sure for himself that she's not getting kind of caught up in all the stuff. Because I think she's got her head on straight when it comes to, yes, I can have these boundaries with my mom, but if something life-threatening were to happen, it would be very difficult to not be there. And everybody has to make their own decisions about that, because everybody's feelings are different. But Kate had, it seemed like, a strong emotion at that time that she wanted to go to her mom and be with her mom. So I think Ty was trying and did a good job of validating that it's okay, even if she's mad at her mom, to go be with her if she wanted to.
Kate doesn't automatically go be with her mom, but Nova does. Nova decides to go have lunch or like a breakfast or something with her grandma, which I thought was pretty cute. Kate was like, why don't you invite your Uncle Nick, who we also know Kate was beefing with around this time too. Yeah. So she's like, I might as well see them all. You get them all done at once.
Yeah, so I thought that it was a good suggestion and a good idea. But this is when Nova realizes, because she goes to text Nick and she's like, do you want to come to lunch with me, mom, dad, grandma, and you? And Kate's like, oh, we're not coming.
Tyler was like, yeah, we're not. And mind you, if I was Tyler, I definitely wouldn't go either. I think Nick was the one that was saying some really bad things about Tyler specifically. I feel like, no, I'm not.
That stuff's going to take a long time before they can all be together in the same room. But I commend them all for, keeping it classy in front of the kids. Even with Kate keeping her boundaries, at least in this moment, I know last episode was a little bit different, but Kate really stuck with what only needed to be said. She just said, I'm not going to come. I will drop you off. I will be there, when you're done. But remember, I'm not talking to my mom. You can talk to my mom. So I thought that was all good. And the lunch seemed to go really well, except when they pulled up, Kate was so anxious. She damn near kicked her own child into the street.
They pulled up behind her. It's funny to me because I thought Catelynn was going to drop her off and maybe drive off and go run an errand or something and then come back and pick her up. This girl sat in the car the entire time and called Tyler, who had to give her a little counseling session. Maybe it's fine if she hugs her mom and says hi to her and checks in with her, but it doesn't mean that she is good with her. She could still have her boundary while also acknowledging her mom. Because of all this anxiety is obviously not good for her either. And maybe this is a way to help, combat that anxiety by at least acknowledging her mom. And Nova does come out with them, and Catelynn does give April a hug. And I really got to give her a lot of credit for that, because I know that must have took a lot.
I think that hug was really healing for both of them too. It looked like a genuine embrace between the two of them. And they did agree to talk to each other soon while they were hugging. I thought that was great. I mean, really an organic situation. I think Kate had that initial anxiety, but because she sat outside the whole time and her mom was still nearby, I think she could kind of ride that out, and then had the courage to be able to say hello and actually be open to talking to her mom. So I thought that that was a really good moment. The whole episode, I think, was good for Kate and her mom. Even if
Mhm.
they don't, talk again anymore, I think just to be able to have a contact, it doesn't have to be so black and white. If you have kids that you want to have a relationship with, you're going to have to be able to look them in the eye and say, hey, how are you doing? It's just like co-parenting. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can't be so cold with each other.
Yeah,
So.
and Nova does seem pretty close with April, and honestly, April watched her a lot. I mean, I know the littler ones might not remember as much, but Nova definitely does.
I was so excited to go to this little lunch. She's like, I freaking love grandma.
Freaking love her. It's like, girl, bless your heart.
I know.
So
Are we on to
moving-
the main event here?
Yep, moving on to the main event, which is Amber. And Amber wasn't in a ton of this episode, but just the little that she was in was just enough to.
She gives me the main emotions. I used to be a little more sympathetic for her than I am now, but this season she's just trash. And let's not forget, at this moment, June 14th, we are currently filming, and today we learned her fiance, who has been missing for the last 5 days, has been officially found. And to me, I think that is case closed that this man made a run for it.
What a way to get broken up with is that I have
I
to
can't
file a
believe
missing person
you know what?
report.
He got out unscathed, okay? He left his phone. He
He
started
wanted to start a
driving
new life.
with no
Well, they were
GPS.
saying that he was sighted in Oklahoma getting a Verizon phone. Mind you, Oklahoma's closer to me than her at this point. That's
It's
bad.
900 miles from where she was. This man left no GPS and drove 900 miles just to go get a phone. That's how far away he wanted to be from this woman. So, I mean, there's no other explanation for that. He hasn't been in contact with her. Apparently, they were having an emotional discussion, and all this stuff has been coming out about Leah, and it's just all bad. I don't blame him one bit,
I'm
but
just wondering if he was driving aimlessly or if he had a map. How do you get that far without a phone?
I mean, highways just go. You drive straight until you get hungry or thirsty or
Well,
need
that's what I'm
gas.
wondering if that's what he just did. He just kept going and going and going. Like he must have had his wallet then, his wallet and his keys, because he must have been getting food, right?
He did. That's what Amber said. He took his wallet and his keys and he left his phone. And now that he's been found and he's safe, it's just so clear that he was like, I do not want you to have any kind of way to contact me. This man's going to delete all of his social media. He does not want to be a public figure. I think some of it might have less to do with Amber and who she is, and more of it with just the publicness of everything.
Maybe. I don't
Because
know.
his parents are Vietnamese, and I guess that's what the discussion's about.
It sounds like an emotional discussion. That sounds like a classic Amber brawl. I don't know. Like it just feels
Part
weird.
of me thinks that this woman reported him missing as a manipulative tactic. Oh, you're gonna leave? Then I'm gonna report you missing. Have the whole world out here looking for you. Because I think he just don't want to be a public figure. And so watch her just report him missing, and now everybody knows his name and his face again. He was on Good Morning America, his face, because she's a public figure with a fiance missing.
Well, here's the thing. If you don't want to be a public figure, don't date a public figure.
Part of me is like, maybe he didn't realize or he didn't quite believe how big it was, but things have gotten
never
bigger.
leaves her house, so he's probably like, "Well, you're not
He's like,
really a public figure."
how well known could you be? And that's so true, except this season, Amber decided to come out swinging at her own daughter on her birthday. So she's a little bit more well known than she usually is.
Who knows? I don't know what this man's reason for leaving. I don't even care at this point. Obviously, he wanted to get away. Something happened, and I don't think he'd come back from that. This man went to go get a whole different phone and stuff. I mean, she can sit here on lives and be like, "My relationship was beautiful," but whatever. I don't know.
No.
But anyways, go back to the episode.
Yeah.
Gary and Leah are talking about the scene at the restaurant, and apparently Amber texted Leah, but she didn't apologize or anything, just to say more bullcrap.
Defend herself even more, which is I feel really bad for Leah. Leah sounded so sad in the scene. She just sounded tired, like sad. It's just not how you should spend the end of your birthday, especially at the hands of your own mom. I'm getting angrier and angrier about this whole thing, but eventually Leah does bring up, or somebody brings up, that James is coming soon, and Leah's just like, well, we're just gonna have to suck it up and
For James,
be around her.
She's only trying to have a relationship with Amber at this point so she can see her brother.
Her
And that
brother.
is really sad. And that's the only person she's trying to do it for. She's like, I'll do anything for him.
Yeah.
I'll try to have a mature relationship if that means I can see him.
She had said that in a confessional towards the end of the episode with her dad in there. My heart broke hearing her say the whole mature relationship thing. And they had shown Gary sort of looking at her while she was saying that. And for some reason, I couldn't help but think I feel like that's how Gary must have felt about Amber regarding Leah for so long. It was just, well, I'm going to have to suck it up and deal with this monster of a human because I care about this person's child and that's the only way I have access to it. And I felt like as we were watching Gary look at Leah speak, they were also Gary's words too. I don't know. It's just sad that this lady
Gary might have even been having that, like,
yeah, that
his
same
own-
kind of thing. Like I have said this before about her mom, about a child that I feel connected to that I can't be with. And it's just sad that Amber is not just ruining relationships with herself and her kids. She's really getting in the way of all these other supports that her children can have. And her children need all the support they can get because their mom is a wackadoo.
Tell me about it. Gary does decide to reach out to Amber, talking to Christina about it. They decide to reach out, as they always do. They always have to be the bigger people in this situation. It's ridiculous. But Gary texts are green. I don't know if Amber's got an Android or what's going on, but his texts are green. She probably blocked him, is what I'm wondering, because his other texts to her are also green, one above.
Right.
And I was like, I wonder what that one says. So we go over to Amber, and this is after the James visit because James can't be filmed. Andrew does not allow James to be filmed. We are talking to Amber after her 4-day visit with James, and she's saying that she didn't even respond to Gary's message.
Yeah.
She decided not to go over there.
She said it didn't work out.
Didn't work out, but she didn't even respond. So,
and in the same breath, she bitches about how Leah lives only 20 to 25 minutes away and that she never sees her. Well, whose fault is that? How in the same breath can you say, I never see my daughter, but I also denied seeing my daughter because my son was here and it just didn't work out? Not even thinking in the world to get your own children together to enjoy their time together just as much as you can enjoy their family just as much as you are. Leah has known this child his whole life, just like you.
And she's using her court-ordered visitation as a flex. Like, oh, well, my son is in my life, even though you only spent 4 days with him. Not that many other mothers around here are saying that. And it's not a flex for them to only see their son for 4 days of the maybe month because he's coming from California. How often is that really happening?
And let's be real, that's probably the reason why she's not seeing Leah that much, because she's not court-ordered forced to see her child who lives 20 minutes away. And that's probably why, because she lives 20 minutes away. She can see her whenever she wants. Well, guess what? Amber never goes to see Leah. And Amber wants to turn around and make it out like it's Gary's fault or Leah's fault, which is even more ridiculous to say. Get yourself a car or an Uber or a driver or a carrier pigeon or a scooter or a bike and go over there.
There's no reason for it. And Gary and Christina have made it accessible. It's not like they're blocking you at every turn. They're even trying to get a hold of you and you're ghosting them.
And your son an entire meal if you go over there. Free dinner for everybody. You know they will.
Let's just call it what it is. I feel like Amber just sits around all day, watches TV, goes to sleep, eats, whatever. Like, she don't do nothing. I feel like she just don't do nothing. And she just doesn't want nobody to interfere with that. It sounds like she stays up half the night. And what do you have to do for half the night? Nothing's open. And then she doesn't.
She's up half the night scrolling, probably anxious, probably bitching to people on social media, talking about how she can't sleep, but not trying to do anything to sleep other than scrolling on social media and making herself more and more anxious. And then she wakes up, she feels more and more in a frazzle, and she doesn't go see her kids. Can't see me like this. I'm just so done with her. I know that I just called this the main event and kind of saved her for last, but this is not the best. She is not the best for last. I'm really getting to the point where I could do without it, especially now that Jenelle's back. I'm just exhausted by Amber at this point. I get having people who are dramatic, who are polarizing. It definitely brings up the viewership. I'm here for it. I am exhausted by Amber now. I'm completely done with it. I do not want to see this shit go on with Leah any longer. I can't wait for Christina to adopt her.
I just feel like we need to stop giving her a platform. She's done more things that other people have gotten fired for. Jenelle got fired for the dog thing. Sure. I mean, David, whatever. Farrah got fired for what? Doing stuff that now everybody on Teen Mom is doing, OnlyFans and all that stuff. People have been fired for less. And she's gotten some pretty big things going on. I mean, it's the machete thing. She should have been fired for that. She endangered the life of a child. I just think she should have been fired for that. And then they keep, I don't know what she's got on these producers or executives or what's going on, but you can't even talk bad about her. Brianna said one thing on Twitter and she had to delete it. She's like, I'm probably gonna get a phone call. Since when can these bitches talk bad about each other online, especially when it makes sense?
I know. It's crazy. It really is. I do think a lot of it has to do with ratings. And maybe now that Jenelle is back, maybe they'll start to make other decisions because I don't know who else would carry the show, to be honest.
Amber wasn't even carrying it the last couple seasons. She was barely in it. The only thing that they
her
would
and
show
her
some
weird little gremlin stuffed animals in the background. Right.
It's been more like Leah carrying it. It was Leah carrying it, not Amber. And that's not fair to put on a kid. She ain't no teen mom.
Right.
She's momming her own mom, though.
Right.
I
think that's everybody.
Yeah, that's
so
everybody.
Next we see Bentley Drive, which is going to be
wow.
spooky. We see Leah's dad is going to get out of detox. Apparently Jade and Sean are going to try to homeschool their daughter. We all know this is not going to go well.
The people who left her for months.
Yep, they're going to try to homeschool her. I don't know why. I'm sure it's not going to go well. They are already arguing in
this is just a reason for Sean not to get a job again. I'm sick of this.
Probably. It probably is. That's a good point. Apparently, Corey wants Ryder for 10 days to go on vacation, and Shai tells him to get out of the house. Then we also learned that Brianna's mom is a addict. So it's going to be a jam-packed episode, next episode.
Hopefully, the side characters will come back and get their main storyline.
I hope so. Something's
gotta take this bag from Amber before we lose our minds.
Or soon I need to see Christina.
Doctor.
We need to stop following Amber and just start following Gary, Christina.
And get rid of the dead weight and the deadbeat mom. All right. We'll catch you next time, Chick Chatters. Remember to like, subscribe, reduce, reuse, recycle, Rihanna, all of it. All of them. Do it all.
All of them. Bye.